Sorry about that. Uh, just as a brief roadmap, we're going to go pro case first, then con. Caleb, just so you know, the quality and everything was really good on your video that you sent me earlier, so no worries. And as far as cross-ex stuff, if you have any questions about the case itself, feel free to just Facebook them to me. Otherwise, we'll try to just stay there. Okay? So, with that said, pro case first, then con, and let's go. At the end of the debate, the basic question that you're going to ask yourself is if NAFTA has been beneficial with the United States being involved. Our argument on the pro side is absolutely it's critical, and one of the main reasons is because of the way that it contributes to both the economy and to the agribusiness that NAFTA allows in the United States, in Canada, and in Mexico. Let's look first at my contention one where we talk about agriculture. The Kennedy and Duval evidence that I read at the very beginning here is really important. It talks about how NAFTA allows for agriculture to be developed, which means that the United States is able to keep food prices down. My subpoint B evidence indicates that this is really important, and my subpoint C evidence indicates that 795 million people will die if the price of food increases just a little bit because they live on less than $2 a day. Remember that NAFTA is the best way to keep food prices low, which means that voting pro is critical. Now, on contention 2, I talk about how NAFTA is key to state economies. This is because a lot of states are using the North America Free Trade Agreement to trade with Mexico and Canada. My Jones evidence says that this is critical, and then my Gordon evidence says that this is important to the overall economy. So when we're looking at how the economy works, remember that having the states do great is actually the best thing possible. And finally, in contention 3, I talk about how it's critical for jobs. First of all, my first piece of evidence talks about how the TN and E visas are actually key because they employ 14 million people, which if you're looking at the benefits for NAFTA, you're looking at 14 million people who have jobs because of it. And then the Simpson evidence indicates that that's actually critical to the overall economy. Now let's look at my opponent's case. In their contention 1, they talk about how they would stop climate change and how this would be good because NAFTA is really critical. I've got a few arguments to this. My first argument is that even if NAFTA happened or was pulled out of it, wouldn't matter because the US and Canada are not that important. India is actually the major cause of climate change, and the pro doesn't solve this. Mann explains in 15 that India plans to build 455 new coal-fired power electric plants. India's plans are among the world's dirtiest, vastly increased carbon emissions, made it nearly impossible to prevent global temperature from rising more than 3.6 degrees. And additionally, climate change can't be reversed. On May 9th, 2017, we passed the tipping point, which means that the pro team can never solve this, or the con team can never solve this. Ellison explains in 17. On 5/9, when NOAA's observatory atop Mauna, Hawaii, recorded a concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that exceeded 400 parts per million for the first time in recorded history, a tipping point finally may have been passed. On 5/9, we passed a tipping point and entered a new world. This new reality is a consequence of our lifestyles intersecting with fundamental and unbreakable laws of physics. We simply need to own up to the fact that we are in a new climate regime. Global warming is indeed happening. It is not a short-term trend, and it's not going away. And also, even if they win that the U.S. being involved in NAFTA is bad for climate change, it doesn't mean that the U.S. not being involved would actually solve it. It's kind of like drinking soda. I know that drinking soda is bad for my health, but just stopping drinking soda doesn't make me healthier. I suddenly couldn't run a marathon. If the United States withdrew from NAFTA, it wouldn't mean that suddenly all these types of climate negotiations were better. Let's look at contention 2. They say that NAFTA prevents diseases. But my first argument here is that even if people were able to get the medications, they wouldn't solve diseases. There's lots of people who don't take medication because they're against vaccines. Sterling explains this in 14. Diseases that are and have been avoidable in the U.S. thanks to vaccines are resurfacing all across the countries. Measles, for example, was considered wiped out in 2000, but there have been several outbreaks in the past few years. The emergence of these diseases is to parents in the U.S. not vaccinating their kids. If you're unvaccinated and you come in contact with a measles, there's a 90% chance you'll get it. And finally, disease prevention is key, then vote for us, because the lack of food, which we solve, is key to disease. Aykroyd explains on note 8 that disease epidemics are known to follow famines, but it has not been noted that famines follow epidemics. Diseases follow diseases for two main reasons. First, undernutrition impairs the body's defense against disease, and second, the distribution of disease from person to person during famine has led to major epidemics. Typhus has been named famine fever because it connects with famines. All of these are reasons that voting for the con team in today's debate round is a reason to vote con.